make. What hasn't changed is the quality of care we provide, supplying the medicines you need and the advice you trust. Your local community pharmacy, always here for you. Brought to you by the Irish Pharmacy Union.
With the An Post Money app, you can open a current account from the comfort of your couch, as well as earn money back into your account when you shop with any of our partners. So far, our customers have earned over €1 million, because when it comes to your money, you deserve more than a bank. Download the An Post Money app or visit your local post office today. An Post Money current account. Money back is based on spend with selected money back partners. A monthly maintenance fee applies. See onpost.com. Terms and conditions apply. An Post is authorised by the Minister for Finance to provide payment services and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland in the provision of such services.
Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
Welcome back. Still 2-1 Manchester United at Old Trafford. 37 minutes on the clock there. Let's go to Ruaidhri O'Connor of the Irish Independent. Evening, Rory.
Hey, Joe. How's it going?
Very well. Thanks for the time. So, breaking news.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were going to talk about this evening, given, the rugby season was supposed to finish last Saturday with Ireland's last test in Australia, and we're in the middle of like a 15-week limbo between the fixtures being announced and them actually being played. But yeah, so Rugby Players Ireland and the IRFU have finally, after nearly a month of negotiation, reached a deal on players' pay, which will affect players over who are earning more than €25,000 per annum, rather than the flat 20% cut that I think the IRFU were looking for. Starting out, it'll be a 10% salary reduction from July 1st to December 31st, with a 10% salary deferral for the same period. And this is a little bit legally or something, 5% subject to a retrospective salary reduction pending on the ongoing impact on COVID-19. So I think what will happen is in December, they'll sit down again and review where we are and what the situation is at that point. But it buys the RFU some time. It's, I think, because they've protected players on a very low wage and managed to defer 10% rather than have it cut from the salaries completely, it looks like a win for the Rugby Players Ireland from their starting point. And it's, I guess, a bit of clarity for both sides as we kind of slowly work our way towards rugby returning on August 22nd.
Okay, so 10% pay cut now, defer another 10% until January 2021 at the earliest, and then you mentioned potentially another 5% cut depending on how things go.
I think if things have gone badly, 5% of the deferral may not be paid back.
Okay.
It's my reading of that, but I know it's couched in language that makes a simple journalist makes it difficult for me to penetrate. But yeah, it looks like the salary cut is just until Christmas, and they'll then, in that December chat, they'll revisit whether that will continue on the long term, because obviously, if things are going great, we'll have fans in stadiums and stuff, and if things aren't, there may be a need to revisit this and have more chats. But obviously it took a long time to get here, because it's been almost a month of different rounds of talks that have gone on for weeks now. So I think they'll both be quite happy to get it over the line and be able to move on.
Yes, because this had become quite protracted, and then there were, a sense of unhappiness that certain aspects of the negotiations were being leaked in the press, which was unlike the IRFU and unlike how they have conducted their business with the players' union. So there were a few stumbling blocks along the way here.
Yeah, they got off to a really bad start, because I think what happened really was that the 20% figure was mentioned in a meeting with staff on the last Friday in June, I think that was. So non-playing staff took a 20% cut in terms of they were reduced to a 4-day week from July. I presume that is until December as well. So they've been reduced to a 4-day week, which obviously equates to a 20% cut in salary. And rather than, this was before they sat down with Rugby Players Ireland to discuss terms. And the first Rugby Players Ireland learned of that 20% figure was through the Irish Times that Saturday, which didn't sit well with them. They released a statement, which, this is has long been a very cordial relationship between these two organisations. So Rugby Players Ireland took a fairly drastic step of voicing their unhappiness on the Sunday with a statement saying that they were disappointed to learn of that figure through the media rather than at the negotiation table. And it just meant things were tense from the off, Rugby Players Ireland employed BDO to represent them with Simon Keogh, the CEO, at the negotiating table. They got a look, and in fairness to the IRFU, I don't know if all organisations will do this, but they opened their books to the players, gave BDO, I think it's Kieran Medler is the guy's name, who was there for them. He's a partner in there who heads up their sports division. He got to go through the IRFU's books to see exactly what the IRFU, see if what the IRFU were saying about having their cash run out and all of that, and the precarious nature of their financial position matched up to reality. So that was I think that probably got things back on track, but it was quite protracted and it's lasted quite a long time. Partly, I think, because getting all the people together at the same time at this time of year when people are on holidays can be quite difficult, but also because there was a lot of working out to do, and they've managed to come up with this kind of, I presume, a halfway house, I suppose, between what you wanted and what the players, who I think were always willing to take a cut, but wanted to protect those players on a very low income. But I think they're not. They obviously they live in this country. They know what's going on with everyone's jobs and everyone else. They knew that it would have been pretty unseemly for them to hold out for full pay when people are struggling. And I think they were always willing to take a cut. They just didn't like the way it started and wanted to protect players on a very low income.
Okay. So again, if you're tuning in, breaking news, the IRFU and the Players Union have reached agreement. Irish rugby players will take 10% pay cut and they will defer another 10% until January at the earliest. So that has been signed off on and agreed on at this stage. That's breaking news this evening. In the midst of it all, I mean, the reason they're taking a pay cut, of course, I see that the RFU have begun the process of refunding tickets for the two outstanding Six Nations games, the Italian game and France away. So I mean, we still don't know, will any fans be allowed in the Aviva for the Italian game, but certainly the vast majority won't be.
Yeah, the figures are if 2 metre social, well, presuming that the 500 limit on crowds is increased by October, that Italy game, which we expect to take place on October 24th, will either be subject to 2 metre or 1 metre social distancing. Given what we all know, if it's 2 metre, it would have a capacity of 8,400 people in the Aviva Stadium. If it's 1 metre, that goes up to 18,200, which is obviously still well short of capacity, but would allow the RFU to probably accommodate their 10-year ticket holders, sponsors, maybe a couple of clubs. But they've obviously basically admitted defeat on the idea of having 52,700 into the Aviva at that point, and have already, the people have been waiting for clarity on these tickets since they were supposed, since it was cancelled in March. It would indicate as well that the November internationals, whatever form they take, will also be in front of reduced crowds, if not behind closed doors, which is a massive financial hit. Philip Brown has said that if those Six Nations games and November internationals take place behind closed doors, it will cost the union between 15 and 20. It's between 10 and 15 million from their cash, from their income this year, which is obviously a massive hit for the organisation.
And it's not long away now. I mean, what are we talking about? August, September, a little bit into October, we're talking 12, 13 weeks. I mean, the world ain't changing much in 12, 13 weeks, especially when you're talking about crowds. So that's the situation from the IRFU point of view. Rory, can you talk to us about the speculation surrounding what's going to happen in the Pro 14? And we're looking at a Pro 16. We're looking at big changes here, South African based.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is, I heard Mark Evans, the former Harlequin chairman, who's now works for the Western Force. He was on the London Times podcast last week, I think it was. And he basically said that what was going to happen in rugby in 2025 has been brought forward 5 years because of COVID. And what was going to happen was a realignment of the game along time zones rather than hemispheres. And we've seen through Super Rugby Aotearoa, which has been going on in New Zealand over the last month, to great success in front of big crowds, and to a lesser extent in Australia, where they're not allowed as many people in, so it doesn't look as good, and also the quality isn't great. That local is becoming increasingly more attractive to TV companies and also to clubs who don't want to be trekking across the world and trekking across time zones and playing at city times of the day to satisfy a competition that's bloated and no longer works in Super Rugby. And in particular, the Southern Hemisphere, the Antipodean teams don't like going to South Africa and the South African don't particularly like going there either, because games in South Africa are on. Games in South Africa are on in the middle of the night for the New Zealanders and the Australians, and they're on in the morning for the South Africans.
Madness.
It never, like when it was a kind of Super 12 and the quality was off the charts and all the best players were there, it kind of worked and it was new. But I think increasingly it looks like it will be an Australian and New Zealand conference with Pacific involvement as well. So we've been waiting for this to happen for years. South Africa is basically moving closer and closer to Europe because we're effectively on the same time zone. Games will take place. Games there, as we've seen with the Pro 14, take place at a sensible time. But I guess they dipped their toe in the water when the opportunity arose, and they got the Cheetahs and the Southern Kings in. They're two weakest franchises into the Pro 14.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they caught anybody's imagination, either of them.
No, like I was at the first two games Leinster played in South Africa, and no one went to them. I mean, they were. Of all the things, it didn't capture the South Africans' imagination. I mean, they just don't know what the competition, or didn't know what the competition was. Were interested in Super Rugby. It was played during the summer, and this is some of the challenges that they'll have. So what we've gotten to now is, it looks like if the New Zealanders and the Australians tear up their Sanzar agreement, which is being reported in New Zealand is very close, the South Africans will then, their best four provinces will replace the two existing provinces in a Pro 16, which then I think will see them probably regionalise the Pro 14 to some degree. So, I mean, I think what everyone's seeing is that derbies work. That games between the Dragons and like no one's interested in games between different countries. People are really interested in games between, and especially in South Africa. Like, they're not going to be interested in Treviso coming down to play games, but they want to play against each other. So, like, you're going to get the best Springboks that are not playing in France, England, or Ireland, which is obviously a dwindling number, but you're still going to get the best teams, the four teams that are coming in. Yeah. So it will improve the quality of the competition, but I guess the danger is that you go the same way as Super Rugby and make it just hard to follow and cross conferences and hard to get engaged with. But like, quality wise, those four teams will they'll instantly become contenders to win the competition.
Yes, indeed. So the Cheetahs gone, the Southern Kings gone. Thanks very much for everything, Southern Kings. And then the Bulls in, Lions in, Sharks in, Stormers in. That's what we're looking at here. Is there any timeline in this, or is this still all speculative?
You would imagine it's too late for the next season. But then the last time they got it done really, really quickly. But I mean, all of this is against the backdrop of everything we're hearing about foreign travel and the uproar over American flights coming in. So like, our South African teams, and they're much further behind on COVID than we are. It just took longer to get there, so they're at a different stage. I spoke to someone in Cape Town last week where I think they were only at the first phase of easing restrictions. So
yeah, and at this talk they're going back into lockdown as well.
Yeah, so you're like, and it's obviously a country with a massive population, many of whom live in squalor. It's going to be much harder to manage. So like, the idea that we're going to be traversing the world to play a rugby competition this year looks it's going to be quite tough for the Pro 14 to pull off. I mean, it's not only, the UK is split into 4 different health jurisdictions, so there's 3 countries with that are involved that even they're not even aligned. Obviously, we're not aligned. The Italians are not aligned, and the South Africans are not aligned. So I think it would make more sense if it was a year later. But if Super Rugby is canned for next year, they're going to want to have South African teams in it. So I don't think there's clarity on that yet. It could be as early as next year, but it seems unlikely at this point.
Okay, so Manu Tuilagi then. I mean, when England have Manu Tuilagi and the Vunipolas, they're kind of scary, and we know that better than most. He is 29 years of age, been at Leicester for a while, a serious deal, around 500,000 a year, Manu Tuilagi. And as I understand it, you can fill in the blanks here, but as I understand it, Leicester put down a deadline and said you have to accept a reduced contract. It didn't seem like he particularly wanted to do that. So for all intents and purposes, it looked like he would be headed to France. And now it turns out that Sale have swooped in and signed Manu Tuilagi.
On a cut price deal as well. It sounds like he's only getting like less than half of what he was getting at Leicester. Now, I believe he hopes to recoup some of that in a legal action against Leicester, because they presented a pay cut as a fait accompli, as far as I know, and him and 4 other players decided they weren't going to accept the deadline or the pay cut and walked. There's not a whole lot more to it though, Joe, as far as I can tell. JP told me we'd be talking about this, so I did kind of make a few inquiries and listen to a few things and read a few things, and it does seem as simple as Leicester said, you're taking a pay cut. He said, no, I'm not. They said, right, if you don't accept it by this date, you're gone, and he walked. And obviously France or Japan would have been more lucrative for him, but Eddie Jones stepped in, and Eddie Jones at one stage apparently wanted to sign him on a central contract for the IRFU, and then kind of they would control his minutes, and he'd be playing for Sale or whoever on that basis. But the RFU said, look, that we can't do that. That's not something we're able to, like, it would set a precedent.
I was just going to say, there's no other players in a central contract over there, are there?
No, it would be a first. I think it was an opportunistic move from Jones, who would obviously like to control the players in that way. Didn't work out for him, but it wasn't a bad idea. I think it was pretty smart. But so Sale have swooped in, they've taken him, and he goes into their squad now for the end of this, like, this ridiculous end of the season that they have lined up, where they're playing something like 7 games in 18 days or something. You know, they've got midweek games and like this schedule that's like going to basically impact the whole year for England on the line. So it's a massive blow for Leicester, but at the same time, he's been playing for Leicester for years. He doesn't average very many games a year. He was often injured during that career. They gave him massive contracts based on historical performances. I don't think they've ever got great value out of him, even though he has a long family connection to the club through his brothers and came through their academy. I think they maybe expected him to show them a bit of loyalty, but you know, the short career, all the other things that go with it. Manu has decided that it is, and Noel Reid as well, the Irish centre, as he looks like he's going to France. He's decided as well that he's not willing to take that cut.
Right. Before you go, obligatory Jack Charlton question, I think, for the weekend that's in it. I know you're a big football fan as well, and you're of an age where you would have been swept up in the whole thing with literal childlike wonder, I think.
Yeah, like, I think trying to think about how to come at this with something new. Like, I just feel like incredibly lucky to have grown up in the era that I did. Like, Ireland may not have been a very glamorous place in the 80s and 90s, but to have experienced that as a kid, like, I have had conversations with friends where we've gone, geez, wouldn't you love to have been 18 or 19 and in Italy or in Giant Stadium and stuff? But I mean, you probably wouldn't remember it very well. And whereas I think it kind of seemed to stretch on forever when you were actually a kid at that time. Like, that team just meant so much to us. I remember queuing for like hours to get Packy Bonner's autograph in Extravision and Tala, and I got lost.
What are you talking about? Ireland wasn't glamorous. I mean, listen to this.
I got lost the night. Like, a woman stole my tricolour on the homecoming in 1990, and my family lost me because I chased after it, like, through the throngs of millions of people on the streets. And it's kind of this like family memory that often comes back, comes up again and again.
A woman stole my tricolour.
Like, I was the biggest. Like, I was afraid my mum would find out that I lost my flag, I think, because it probably cost me £2. So I chased her around town through thousands and thousands of people, and probably my family there thought they'd never see me again. But like, they said, like, just sitting around, just like memories of sitting in the house with like 3 generations of your family all packed into small sitting rooms, and then spilling out in the street to celebrate. I know it's everyone who was alive, and I often wonder what people who are younger than us make of us. Like, are we all just bores who keep going on about this period in our lives, or are they just jealous? I'm not sure. But
well,
it's,
I think it has permeated through, and the footage is just so extraordinary. Even if you're young and particularly unimpressed with things, you look at the numbers, you look at the homecoming, and you have to acknowledge that looks like good crack. And I think you see that manifest itself at Euro 2012 and Euros 2016. Yeah. It's like that generation's effort to try and tap into the glory of Italia 90. Like, we behave, I think Malachy Clerkin made that point, consciously or unconsciously. There's a performative aspect to how we conduct ourselves now as fans. Yeah, and I guess what we were also probably also raised the expectation levels around the team, that we as journalists of my age probably hold the team always up to that standard that they more often than not don't hit. But like, one of my big regrets is that I've never been to see Ireland play in a major football tournament. I've always wanted it for that kind of Italia 90 or USA 94, but for whatever reason I never got it together in 2002 to go. And again, you just think it's going to happen every time, and it doesn't happen. And fortunately now, June, I'm generally out of the country on a rugby tour, so I end up watching these tournaments from Bloemfontein or some unglamorous spot in South Africa where no one really knows what's going on. But yeah, it was a real privilege, and I think you saw what it meant to people. Like, it was just like no one's, an 85-year-old man dies, he's had a great life, but it's just terribly sad because it's just a chapter in all of our lives that's gone, isn't it? Yeah, it's about the passage of time as much as anything. Listen, thanks for that. If anybody, on a serious note, has seen Rory's tricolour, 53106, he would really appreciate that back. That'd be great. He misses it dearly. If we catch that woman, she's going down. Well, I think we need to have a truth and reconciliation appointment with her, so like we can talk about the trauma she inflicted on my 7-year-old self back then. Indeed. Listen, great stuff. Thanks, Emil. Appreciate it. Cheers. See you.
Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.
Sign up for News Talk Extra, our email newsletter straight to your inbox. newstalk.com/extra.
At Renault, we want to be the first to bring you Buy Now, Pay Later. Our new 3-2-1 offer gives you 3 unmissable reasons to buy a new car. 3, that's 3 months real deferred payments. Plus 2, 2.02% APR. Huge savings with Renault Bank. Plus 1, €1,000 cashback. Yes, you get all 3. Buy now, pay later from Renault. Visit your local Renault dealer today. Offer is made under a hire purchase agreement subject to lending criteria, terms and conditions.